Dear audience and President of Finland, I'm glad to be here today, and I must say I feel honored that the demo asked me to host this panel. As Tina mentioned earlier, I'm here as a writer and as a journalist. March this year was published my book, Keitäs tyttö kahvia. The title can be freely translated into Hey girl, go and make some coffee. For this book I interviewed 30 Finnish female politicians. Some of them have decades of political experience. Still I think there is a lot to be done before in Finland too we can talk about true gender equality. The document we just saw gave me a lot to think about, and it gives us an interesting ground for this panel. Now I think it's time to introduce our panelists. First we have President of Finland, Mrs. Tarja Halonen. There are so much, of course, that could be said about her work, but President Halonen is widely known for her interest in human rights issues. Then we have Sarika Jaiswal, who works as a coordinator in Equality Project in Nepal. And then we have Johanna Pakkanen, who is a Secretary General in Nytkis, a network of women organizations in Finland. And then we have Eila Tiainen, a member of Parliament. And now I start with President Halonen. In this document, one of the interviewers reminded of the saying, woman's enemy is a woman. She also repeated the title of this document, which is Woman's friend is a friend. Woman is a friend of a woman. You have such a long experience in politics in Finland and all around the world. And I would like to hear what is your opinion. Is woman a woman's enemy or a friend?
Is this automatic or should I press it? Okay, fine. Okay, dear sisters and brothers, I see also there's some brave men here in this situation. That's very good because the equality, gender equality, is not only the task or the right or the duty of the women, but it works much better if we have also progressive men with us. I will say that those who are coming from Africa, they know very well that when we spoke about the equality between the different races, we knew very well that you need both black and white and all other kind of the people to work for that. It's a little bit different angle, but it's anyway, we need all kind of people in this work. And I hope that human being is a friend of the human being. So the men to women and women to men and women to women. But of course, because of the historical situation, I especially hope that the woman can be a friend of the woman. I have changed this a little bit earlier. I have said that there is a very famous American song sung by Marilyn Monroe in time when she had this, the diamonds are the best friend of the girl. And I said that that's part of the truth, the half truth, because Marilyn Monroe didn't know the Nordic welfare society. So I think that in this American film it was quite a good conclusion that economical independence is important for the woman. Normally, I don't think that we can invest in diamonds, but anyway, that's the point. And in another fact that has been through the history also one task or issue of the marriages that has been the economic support or security. So the second point is that the money is important, but it's even more important to have the services like we have in the north, education, daycare, health, the help for the senior citizens and so on. But even more than that, it's of course the friendship between the people, between the individuals. In Finnish language it's very easy because we say ihminen when we mean the human being. What's very often in English language it's a man. But we have the man and woman very, very limited. It's concerning the gender. But then the immanent human being is a different word. So I have sometimes difficulties in English to say what I want. The other thing is that when I sometimes say he, I mean she, because we don't make any difference between he and she in Finnish language, but that's what I mean. So yeah, I do think so that it's very important to create the networks, what has been in the film, and I'm already not old, but so long time lived that I remember when we made this women's network in the Parliament in 1996, and I was no more a member of Parliament when Demo was founded, because I was already the president. I think so that you have not taught me to speak too lengthy. I'm ready to answer in different parts and to have a discussion, but I will say that when we Finns always say that we are so proud that we are the first one in the world, the country which gave to our citizens, both the men and women, the equal rights in political field. And that normally goes well if the New Zealand is not present, because they say that they are the first ones. But in both cases there are certain minus marks, because I don't know whether the New Zealand nowadays is considered to be quite independent. They are part of the Imperium anyway, but we were not independent in the time when we came for political rights, both for the women, but also for the most of the men, because in old days only the elite had the political rights. But we had an autonomy status under the Russian Tsar. And so we have a very typical situation, what's known in Asia and also in Africa. And this is that as a part of the independence struggle, it was accepted that women could be equal to men in order to fight for independence, for freedom, whatever it will be. But then afterwards, of course, what's given, it was given. And the Finnish women, luckily, they were so strong that they had already in the first parliament, they have more women than there has been in many EU countries in the parliament. And so they couldn't say that, sorry, now it's the good time and you can be again at home, but we continue. The first female minister came, if I remember correctly, it was Minna Sillanpää in 1920s. But we have to reach the peace after the Second World War in 1940s before we got more women in the government than one. It was typically the only one. But now, today, we have a slight majority of women in the government, not quite the 50-50 in the parliament. And I mean, still, man and woman together makes 100%. And we cannot reach really the sustainable development if we don't use all human capital of the humankind for the future. And that means both women and men. Thanks.
Still, I would like to a bit continue with these phrases, because I simply love these kind of phrases. Madeleine Albright has said, there is a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And now I would like to continue shortly with you, President Halonen.
I put the name of the Madeleine here because those who are not Finns, those who are not Finns, they don't know this, but the Finns know that one of the political, how could I say, slogans in the time when I was a president, 12 years, the maximum time, but what can be in Finland. So they always said that otherwise it's okay, but I have not good relations with USA. So I don't know, I didn't accept the Iraq war. But otherwise I had a very good relation to many American politicians, and one of them is Madeleine Albright. Madeleine Albright was foreign minister, secretary for foreign affairs at the same time what I was. And she had a wonderful idea already when she was a US ambassador in UN. She always, if she had a lack of time, she said that if there is the woman ambassador of the country to be in UN, so I will meet her, even I have not too much time. But if it's the man, you look at the schedule, it's okay, but not always. And when we were foreign ministers, so she had a similar idea. She said that it should be also the network between the foreign ministers who are women, and we didn't need two big table in those days. and so she organized this always, and we had always the two items. One was that something which was just personal. We said to all the new members in this ministerial forum that don't think that you are ugly, don't think that you are stupid, don't think that you are stupid in this or that. That's the stereotype. They always do this. This happens everywhere, even in Nordic countries. So don't take it personally. Take it just that this is the rule of the tradition, but you can struggle against that. And that's very fine. I remember another time when Mari visited Finland, and so after the press conference he said to me that, how is with my mascara? Her mascara, is it running? Because it has been a very tough day. No, I said, I would tell it to you if it would be. And they said, yes, that's true. I mean, women can be very collegial, even the small things. But then in the big things, we always took some of the items which are important for the women in the world. And one of these, what has been in Hillary Clinton's speech, was that women's rights are human rights. We had said it many times already earlier, but when a US representative said it, so it reads much bigger echo. And I think so that Americans still dream about to have a female president.
Maybe
Okay.
it will happen. Then we move to Sarika, Jaiswal. You work in Nepal in Equality Project. What kind of difficulties women encounter when trying to participate in politics in Nepal? What is your experience?
Thanks. I'm very glad to be part of this panel. In Nepal, also like just seen in the documentary, the Tanzanian women are struggling or facing the obstacle and challenges. It's a kind of similar in Nepal. Also, women are facing challenges while they are coming into politics. They are also not economically independent, and we also have a male-dominated society. So for women, it's also very difficult to take part in the politics. And like in Tanzania, they have special seats. We also, in Nepal also, the women got 33% quota. In a number, it looks good on paper in a number, but in reality, it's very difficult because they could not influence in the decision-making process. So there also the male domination is kind of very, they are just difficult for the women to have their say, because most of the women are handpicked, and if they are handpicked, and if they are not, if they didn't come from the democratic process, it's very difficult to have their say. And challenges, talking about the challenge in Nepal, one of the challenges I've been hearing from the women that it's so easy socially to attack on the women's character if they are getting more powerful and influential, even in their own political parties. So strategically, men attack on their character and then they step back. It's really difficult. So yes, these kind of challenges women are facing in Nepal.
So what can be done? What is your work there in Nepal? What do you do?
Yes, we are working, as you know, I'm working with the Demo Finland as a project coordinator and looking for a gender equality project, mobilizing youth for gender equality in politics in Nepal. So networking, I think most important thing is networking. We are working with the women from students and youth organization, and if they work together, then they achieve what they want. But if they don't work together as a woman, and if they only work as a different ideology, as a different political party, then it would be very difficult for women to achieve their common shared goals. So networking and inter-party cooperation, these are the things which need to be encouraged for the gender equality.
So networking is the key word, I think. And then we have Johanna Pakkanen. How would you describe the ability of women to network, which seems to be the key word here?
Yeah. I come from Nytkis, which is a coalition for women's organizations. It's not...
No, it works. No. Okay, you press, you take it on the phone.
Yes, I come from Nytkis, which is a coalition for women's organizations in Finland. And we have like Eduskunnan naisverkosto, the parliamentary network for women. Like them, we have also the parliamentary or the political parties women's organizations. But we also have the gender studies or women's studies organization and feminist organization Unioni, which is the oldest 120 years old feminist organization in Finland. And we also have another umbrella organization, which is the, let's see what's in English, it's the National Council for Women's Organizations in Finnish, it's Naisjärjestöjen Keskusliitto. And we have a consensus principle in our principles, in our rules. It means that we don't disagree or we don't vote on our issues. We actually try to find the most common issue we can all agree on. And that makes us very peaceful. We actually I have never been in Nytkis having any argument really there in the Nytkis board. And it has been actually really easy to find those issues that are common for all of us. And quite often when the international guests, for example from demo projects, they come and visit us in Nytkis, they really wonder how it's possible, but one of the reasons is this consensus principle that we have this agreement not to disagree together. And one issue we have now not talked about now, but one which is really common for all of us is the fight against violence against women. That's something that all political parties and women's organizations and also the other NGOs we have as our members we can agree on. And that's also one question of women's independence. The economical independence is very important, but it's also very important to feel safe in your private life.
Do you think that the way women network, it differs in a way from the way that men do network?
I'm not in the men's network, so I can't
It's a bit difficult
really say about it. I have heard about them, but I don't really know about them.
But in the documentary, it said that women don't have the same kind of network as men have, and it often says that women are not so good in networking. Do you think it's true?
I don't think it's true. Actually, in private life, women are very much networking in their everyday life. And actually, that's one reason that women are more healthy and their mental health is better because they have better private networks. But it's true that we don't have that much power. We don't have that many powerful women in Finnish society, so there are not so many powerful women networking together because the number of them is smaller. But that's not true that women are not networking. It's a stereotype that's not true. It can be shown by statistics or something like that.
If you take percentage, yes.
Yeah.
Please say something about this issue.
So one of the issues, what I say, that if the woman wants to become a politician, she has had the networks, but not only for the politics or the financing, the political work or whatever, which are all very important. But most of the women needed also networking because we still have these double roles at home. The most of the women need also much more people to help in children's care or whatever it is. And I think that we have used to be quite active in that we know that if you need a help in that she can help and she can help and she can help and sometimes even he can help. And I think that this is really exact, that we have a lot of networking, but we have not so powerful persons in our networking, which makes it looking different. But I do hope so that Finnish men also find such kind of the brotherly networking or the sisters within that what you said, that would help also to keep them healthier during the years. So that's it, because we are also human beings.
Eila Tiainen, could you please tell us something about the network in Finnish Parliament? What is the power of the women network here?
Okay, our network, I have been 1 year in this network, and mostly we are collaborate with social problems, and we are very eager in those, because there are nowadays in finance so difficult with many people that we see that the social problems must be solved here. For instance, that example I gave in my first speech. And I think that this women's network is very important for all of us. Although some columnists make some jokes many times of our network, but I think we are very eager to have resolved our problems together.
What is the attitude, I'm very interested in this one, what is the attitude among the male politicians here in Finnish Parliament toward this female networking in Parliament?
I think they are respecting us nowadays. I don't know how it was in beginning, but nowadays they are respecting us and join many times in our allotted proposals. But Tarja, you know the beginning.
Tell us from the
Yeah, so I see also Paula Kokkonen here. Can you raise your hand? Yeah. Paula was at the same time in the parliament what I have been, and she's representing the Conservative Party. She has been after that also as one of the directors of the Helsinki City, and active in many ways. Anyway, so in the beginning people were, not only men but women, were quite, how would I say, what do you say, women's network, that we were the first country in the world to get the full political rights for the women. Why do you need that? And I think that one of the reasons why we thought that it was needed was that we noticed that the people, no, they are not always very progressive, but very often they are more progressive than the next step. That people voted quite many members, female members, to the local authorities and parliament and so on, but then the next step was more difficult. Also, it was difficult sometimes to find enough women in important committees which were preparing the legislation. And then we noticed that we need also more information for those authorities who were implementing the legislation. I take one example. Of course, a rape, it has been a criminal case in our legislation for years and years, for centuries, of course. But then the fact was that women didn't dare to take contact to police station or to tell it to anybody, because they thought that in those days it was a little bit thought that perhaps she herself has given a reason for the rape. And sometimes the discussions at the police station were not too encouraging. And also the court didn't consider it to be too important. But after the discussions, after the committees, after all those what we organized, then they noticed that this is a real human rights violence. And it's nothing concerning the sex itself, that it's one form of the violence. There were also many other issues. In 1996 also, it was the time when I was a minister for welfare, social welfare and health. And we had this issue of the daycare. It has been the years the very big dispute that whether the society should support a woman stay at home to look after the children, or whether they should have the right to get a good, decent daycare place also for the small children, those under the 3 years old. And the ministers of the Center Party, Eva Kuuskoski, and the minister from the Social Democratic, Vappu Taipale, could create in the previous government a compromise that it would be the family who could choose, not the state or the municipality. But then my duty was to put the local authorities to implement it, which was quite an interesting story. So we also noticed that in the Women's Network that we might have a different opinion which is more important, but we could agree that that's the families who can decide that. Of course you can encourage, for instance, the men to take also the parental leave, that more than what they do today or in that time especially, or you can see that the preschool education is important and such kind of the issues. But anyway, so the discussions I think were very, very important in those days. We have been always the good object for the political jokes. And some of the very good, very skillful news reporters, Lokalaitinen is one of them who always wrote the so-called reports from the Women's Networking. Everybody laughed. They were so well written, but that was all just imagination. Of course, he as a man couldn't be present, and of course they had not been such kind of issues, but in a way or another, of course, finally we say that this is not just a joke, that this is a political game, that you should believe that it's not true what he's writing, and how he always described feminists to be, how could I say, the woman which has no curves, and not, let's say not very pretty. And then, of course, it was all kinds of the stereotypes. But as I said, it wouldn't be so dangerous, but he was very good to write this. And I think that this kind of the stories you can find everywhere. And you can laugh. The sense of humor is extremely important for the poetess, and especially for the female poetess. But sometimes you have to remember that, for instance, the Chinese Cultural Revolution was managed exactly with those, that there's a limit that you can accept. Also, I think after a while, also the men and women said that, fine, let's see that what your network can do, and then it became serious.
So we women, we have to set the limits ourselves. In this documentary, Anna Abdallah said that we are all sailing in the same boat. United we stand, divided we fall. I love these, all the sentences, they are so powerful and interesting. What do you think? Can there be an agenda for women, as a collective? I would like to hear all of you to say something about this. Can there be a women agenda? Can we work as a collective?
You mean for working together for a women's agenda?
Yeah, in politics and to get some power.
Yes, I mean to get, I think, to get any kind of power, it would be very difficult if a single woman is going to have an agenda for women. But if they all work together, they can achieve the agenda. Like in Nepal, I want to share that women are still struggling for the identity, for the citizenship issues, to have the economic right, so they cannot help if they are divided. But if all women from the all political parties, if they work together, if they raise their voice, they can be influential and they can achieve their common shared agenda. So, but they need to work together. Like women I just want to share some things. Like we have 2008, we have a Constitution Assembly election in Nepal, and there were 197 women represented. It was a very good number, but they couldn't influence the decision-making process. And at the moment, we don't have a parliament. We have just a caretaker government in Nepal, and the situation is, political situation is very fragile. No one can predict what's going to happen tomorrow. And we have upcoming CA election on 19th of November. Date has been already announced, but we are not sure if we are going to have that election on the announced date, because it's so unpredictable. And as I see this Constitution Assembly elections for women, if they can influence, this is the great opportunity for women to have their say and to get the constitution drafted in favor of women also, equally benefited as man and for the women as well. But in this time, if the woman fails in Nepal, then I don't know how many years, or 10 years, or a century, or how much time we have to wait to have such opportunity to be able to hear women's voice in Nepal. But this is really a very great opportunity coming, but I don't know what to say, that if the women can influence this time. But if all the women, if they work together, if they really work together, so I think that they can influence and they can work for women's agenda in Nepal.
In this documentary, we saw some figures, how many representatives they have in Tanzania Parliament, female representatives. But which are the best ways to encourage women not only to participate in politics, but to compete for the leadership positions? I think this is two kind of different things, just to participate and to have these parts, but to have these leadership positions.
So I really enjoyed how you said concerning the Nepal, because I think that right timing is something which is very, very important to know. Sometimes people become a little bit arrogant. They say that, oh, she's not that good, or she could be better, and so on. So the female politicians, after all, also human beings with all their weaknesses and their strong sides. And then how we should encourage, of course, voters first, to see that we don't try to find a perfect candidate, but as good as possible. And this is the same concerning men. You don't find the perfect, but very often it's easier for the men to believe that they are next to that. And so encourage women to see that they are good enough. That's one thing. Then International Parliamentary Union has made a research concerning the financing the political life, and that tells that there are the different type of elections. And they said in the Tanzania film that certain systems are easier. For instance, our election system is easier for the women and for the newcomers than many others. But then also it could be very useful that you have a networking in all political parties, but also between the political parties. Try to find it. Of course, you have different opinions, but you might have also some similar goals, and to take them. And what I have noticed that I think there is not a single part of the agenda where you cannot find also the gender point of view. I'm now working I'm working for the population and development. It has been almost now 20 years from the very famous Cairo conference, the development and population, and that was a pretty good agreement, but it's not implemented well, and next autumn in United Nations you will have this as a first step to the post-2015. And I think that if we underline in all UN countries also that this is also the very correct timing to work together globally in order to get post-2015 more gender equality approach, more human rights approach, and then I think that this is, like you said, it's difficult to imagine when it would be the better timing. In that way, I do hope so that we can also tell encouraging example Finland is very good at encouraging example. This is not a paradise. but I mean that we can see very easily that women's organizations have been very strong when it's concerning the welfare society, concerning caring society. And that's something what I think that in sustainable development everywhere is very much wished.
In this documentary, Vice Chairman Susan Lime said that her general goal is that in Tanzania there will be more than 50% women representatives in parliament.
Like in Rwanda.
Like in Rwanda. What do you think? Should there be a similar goal in Finland too? Should we take something from there and have the same goal?
Very briefly, of course.
Is it possible?
I think that about 50 is fine. I mean, 49 or 51 or so. I think that when it's about, it's fine.
You can be satisfied. Yeah. Okay, at the very end, I would like you all to answer me. When you think about that usually in the law people are equal, what is your opinion? Is world still a men's world? Is world still male-dominated? What is your experience? And tell me and tell the audience some experiences you have had here in Finland or somewhere else around the world. Just be brave. Is world still a men's world?
So if I can start so they're easier to continue. So for instance, we have a young lady as a Minister of Finance, okay? And there has been now a debate that why in the discussion concerning the budget for the next year and the possible and the cuttings in certain services, why the TV cameras looked only her nails, because her nails were burning red. And of course you would say that, Luxus lady with the nails and so on, but not so often, for instance, they are taking the camera picture for ties of the men or whatever could be such kind of a thing. But for the women, yes. Then we had, is it 2-3 years ago, we have a Prime Minister, a woman who was a handsome looking young lady. And then she attended to the meeting. And then the host of this event said that when in Finnish the Prime Minister means the head of the government. That, oh, you could be even more than the head, you look so pretty.
The whole body.
Your whole body of minister. And so we have a lot of these. Then if you say something against that, they said, this is a sense of humor, you are lacking sense of the humor. But I think that very often it's much easier to look at a woman in politics than to listen to her. And of course, in the time of the TV, for the man and for the woman, it's important how she or he looks like. But I think that for the woman, it seems to be still a major point that either she is too pretty, not enough pretty, too young or too old or do this or that. And so I think that if we would more or less to concentrate what another person says and does than how she or he looks, so it would be of course good for the politics. But there have been lots of these kind of the issues. For myself, one of the issues was my handbags. They have been always too big. Everybody else. Because you have to carry all kind of things with you. And when I was a president, so it was with the first state visit I made to Sweden, the most worries about one of the women's magazines and some of the reporters, men and women, that whether my handbag was too big. And the handbag was made by the most famous Finnish enterprise, Panelit, and should be the best possible. But then I noticed afterwards a fact what I can tell, that if, for instance, certain maneuvers are made for the man, like I was a chief of the army, so there is not a suitable size for the handbag. If it's too small or too big, or is it red or grey, or whatever it would be. So it's the easiest thing to throw it for your security or for somebody else, like a man in that way. So what I always say concerning these kind of things, take it with a sense of humor, but try also how to avoid it. How to avoid it. And fight back. Otherwise, you are not the winner. And in your country, in Nepal, for instance, as you see, the women look very nice and so, but don't take it as a mousetrap. Be that it's more important that they listen what you say than you. Okay, my great encouragement for you. I'm sure you will do very well. Thank you.
What does the other panelist has to say for this?
Yes. Well, yes, it's male-dominated. Most of the fields are, not all. But we should also understand that women, they face gender-related discrimination differently, women by women. And one of the challenges we should start to talk much more in Finnish women's movement is the issues of multiple discrimination and women with minorities and risks of being discriminated because of several reasons in their background. That's something that's really coming to us. And it's also to be sensitive and understanding for the differences of women. And I think that's if we can really make that, then we are very powerful in future also.
Okay, I deal with your experiences, and the latest problem had Minister Kyllönen, and it's very difficult when the woman is younger than the men, and in the Ministry of Traffic and Communications there are also big problems, and I think one of these was this that nobody believed that the minister could have right to do so. She did. And one problem is to older ladies like me, because I'm new in politics and I'm quite an old woman, and I have noticed that I have to work very hard to get also men to hear what I say. Have you some?
Yeah, that's a bit
yeah. But I can manage it, but it's sometimes very difficult.
Sometimes it's good that if you are several women in the same meeting, whatever is the meeting, so promise to yourself that you will always say that what she said was quite correct. So repeating to make that speaker visible, so that whatever it is, that yeah, the Maya said that, the Mary said that, and that's good, and so on. That's the same, of course, with concerning the men if you have a progressive men with you. But I mean that very often the men don't repeat what the woman has said. So this is very simple, small thing.
Very good advice. Sarika, Jaiswal, what is your opinion? Is this a men's world?
I would say, yeah, it still is a man's world. I mean, it's very difficult to, I don't know when we are going to have a woman's world if I talk and share about Nepal. And unless you have the economical independency and build your capacity and you have your say in the decision-making process, it's going to be a man's world. So difficult for a woman in Nepal to become active in the politics and take part freely. It's different layers they have to fight. They have family, they have to start fight and struggling from the family to get out of the family. Then they have a community and then society, and then they have, if they succeed to come out of that two places, then there is another man's world in the political party, and they always demoralize women that you are not, you don't have capacity to become active or to have your say. So women also need to, they need to believe that they have equal capacity and they are not less than anyone else. So for that, I mean, it's a long way to go in Nepal, I would say. And it's still a man's world. If I don't have power, if I don't have any right to exercise, then how could I feel that, yes, it's a woman's world? But I mean, saying this, I'm not saying that we are not, we are trying to get those things, but still it's a very difficult and process and long ways to go.
Okay, I think our time is going to be out now. I thank you very much. It has been very, very interesting and important also. And now I think we have some coffee.